Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We are back again with another exciting episode of Language and Communication Skills, that is about essay writing and presentation skills. We are yet to start our first lecture today, that is Language and Communication Skills, in which we are thoroughly going to discuss and talk about language and communication skills thoroughly. To begin with, we will discuss what exactly are language skills. Do you understand the word language? What is a language? What is it composed of? This is what we are going to discuss in our lecture today. Now if you see this structure on this slide, it says that the whole structure of language composed of different steps. That's a composition of different things. First of all, if you see on the top, that is phoneme. Phoneme is the smallest sound unit in any language. The word phoneme has been derived from the word sound. So it means that it is the smallest language unit in any language. In other words, in English language, phonemes are the smallest sounds, that is a, ba, g, h, I and other alphabets, other letters that are pronounced in the single go. The combination of two or more phonemes is known as a morpheme. Morpheme is something that is joined to the word, to the stem word in the form of a prefix or a suffix. Do you understand the word prefix? That comes before the word, and a suffix is something that comes after the word. Now, combination of two or more phonemes is known as a morpheme. Let's take an example. For example, I take the word comfortable. Now, this comfortable, if I add the prefix uncomfortable. Now this un is a morpheme that has been joined to make that stem word mean different. Now this morpheme itself doesn't mean anything, but with combination of that very stem word, it became uncomfortable, that I am uneasy, I am not comfortable in the situation. Now if we add any suffix, let's say go, or I add the suffix ing with it, that will become going. So if I say ing itself, it doesn't mean anything, but if I am saying going, it means that I am going somewhere or I am heading towards somewhere. So this is how the phonemes combine together to make them morphemes, and morphemes, they add up with the stem words to make them or give them or provide them different meanings. Now the combination of different morphemes with the stem words make words. Word is something that possesses a meaning. Anything that has or that carries a meaning. Now that meaning is something that is available in the dictionary, that you can describe something in its terms, right? For example, I say the word chair, this one on which I am sitting right now. Now this chair is something that's a piece of wood on which we can sit and we can lie down, we can relax, we can even sit down and have dinner, and this chair can be used for so many purposes. Now this chair possesses a meaning, and so is other things, like as you are sitting right here and you are listening to me, and all of these words, whatever I am using, they are the dictionary words and they possess a meaning. This is how we define a word. Now if you see the fourth stage of our language structure, that is a phrase and a clause. Now words, they combine together to give you a phrase and a clause. Phrase is something that possesses a word or that carries a word. For example, if I say I am going to the market, right? This is the whole phrase. I am going to the market, or I am going, right? It is telling you about something, that is a phrase. But if we talk about a clause, that doesn't carry a verb. A verb is a word that shows an action. In the phrase we have talked about that I am going, it means that you are doing something. It is showing you an action that you are doing. If I am using it as a clause, clause would say to the market. Now that's an incomplete thing that is telling you about something. To the market what? Now there is a friend who is asking another friend who is on his way to the market, and he asks him, where are you going? And he answers him, to the market. Now that sentence, maybe the answer of the question is clear, but if that is taken in isolation, that won't be clear to you. Clauses are usually, clauses don't exactly carry any verb in them, so they are, you know, unable to understand, or maybe there are situations in which you cannot understand the exact meaning of the clauses. So the phrase, it carries a verb, however a clause, it doesn't carry a verb. Now phrases and clauses, if you see the fifth step of our slide, that is phrases and clauses, they combine together to give you a sentence. Now sentence is something that carries a verb, that is your starting verb and then your closure, right? That is this whole sentence structure. That is the study of the syntax that is there once you are talking about. The study of sentences is known as semantics. So we call the study of syntax or sentences semantics, in other words. Now sentences, either they are long or either they are short. They combine together to give you a paragraph. A paragraph is something that has got a proper beginning, that has got the proper middle, and that has got the proper ending in it. We are discussing all these things because every phoneme, starting from the smallest meaningful unit sound in any language to the larger text and then the broad essays, everything, they possess a meaning or they carry a meaning. This is, that is why we are here to discuss each and every language structure in detail, so that you don't have any confusion once we are in a process of writing essays and we are in a process of developing our presentation skills. Now a paragraph or different paragraphs, 1, 2, 3, or maybe there are more than that, they combine together to give you a longer text. A text can be any article, a text can be any report, a text can be any essay, or it can be anything like that. In today's lecture, we are going to talk about the modes of communication, the language skills that we have in any language, and then exactly we are going to talk about, in the next lecture, we will talk about what kind of writing styles that we have in our communication, especially when we talk about English language. So all of these steps, starting from phoneme, morpheme, then word, phrase, clause, sentences, then your paragraphs, and then your text, they combine together because they combine together to have a discourse or maybe a dialogue. Because we communicate in our daily life through maybe smallest sound, oo, ah, and these kind of things, and then we also use words yes, no, good, bad, and all these, and then also we use clauses and phrases, as I have already given you one example, and then we use longer sentences, and then we use sometimes we keep on talking as I am doing right now. So this is how we use all of these language structured things in our language as a discourse or as a dialogue to make sure that the next person or the target audience is able to understand whatever we are talking about. So that was a language graph that I was talking about in this slide. Maybe that is clear to you. I hope that we are going to move with it and you don't have any confusion if I ask you that what is a morpheme and what is a phoneme, or what is a sentence, what is a phrase, or what is a clause, or anything like that. So that was the language structure that we were discussing right now. Now let's talk about the language skills. As you know about the language structure, let's talk about the language skills. There are 4 language skills in our language. The first one is listening, as we were discussing in the previous lecture as well, that we have 4 language skills in our language. The first one is listening, the second one is reading, the third one is speaking, and the fourth one is writing. Now if you see listening and reading, both of them, they are the receptive skills. As you can see in the graph as well, they are the receptive skills, because something is coming to you, the information, as I am talking right now, and you are listening. You are listening, so the information is coming to you. You are trying to consume that information and you are trying to absorb that information. You're trying to kind of, digest it. So this is how you are receiving the information, every kind of information that I am telling you or I am sharing with you. So you are listening, and maybe you are reading from the slides too. So both of them, speaking and reading, they become the receptive skills, because the information is being shared in them. The information is being, received in them. So we are going to make sure that you are going to polish your listening skills as well as your reading skills, so that you don't have any confusion in your output skills. Now, what is these output skills? That we are going to focus on these two skills in this course. That is your writing skills and then your speaking skills. Speaking in a sense that you are going to polish your communication skills in your presentations, and writing skills in a sense that you are going to polish your essay writing skills throughout the semester. So both of them, they are the input skills. They are the output skills. They are the productive skills, because you are producing the information and the information is coming out somewhere. So this is how both of them are productive skills. As I am talking right now and you are receiving the information, so you would become the receiver and I am the sender. This is what we are also going to discuss today. Alright, as you can see in the graph, the graph is taken from the English Club. As you can see, there is a listener and then there is a reader. Both of them, they are the receivers, but they are receiving the information, so their information becomes the input information. And on the other hand, if you see speaking and writing, now speaking and writing have something to do with output skills, something to do with the productive skills. So you are producing the information and the information is going somewhere, so you become automatically the sender of the information, and once you are listening and once you are reading, you become the receiver of the information. Now let's check the communication frequency. As you can very well see, listening is the 32% of our daily communication, because most of the time we are listening to other people and we hardly get a chance to, sometimes we really don't exactly find that chance to share our information with someone or deliver our information to someone. So listening is most of the time the largest percentage of our communication frequency in our daily life. That is 32%. Then reading, that is the 19%. We are roaming out on the roads and we are moving from here to there, or maybe you are moving in your college, maybe you are moving in your university, so you keep on looking on the notice boards, maybe you get look at some newspaper, or maybe you pick up your course books and you start reading them. So that's the 19% of our daily one day communication. Then your writing, that is 23%. Maybe as I'm talking right now and I am telling you about language skills, maybe you are jotting down some points, or maybe you are noting down an information. This is how we keep on noting down information, so that becomes the writing is the 23% of our daily communication. Then our speaking, that is the 26% of our daily communications. Most of the time we are listening to others, we are not involved in the communication in speaking. So that is the 26% of our daily communication as we move on. So that was about the structure of the communication frequency that I was sharing with you. Now we are going to move on to the communication skills. Now the question arises in our mind that how do we communicate? We communicate through a language that is the set pattern of starting with the smallest phoneme in any language to the larger texts or the larger paragraphs or maybe longer sentences, right? So this is how we communicate. We do not only communicate through a language, we also communicate through our body postures. We also communicate through our facial expressions. If you are happy and if you are excited about something, your face and your eyes will lit up. You will feel enthusiastic about that very thing. But if you are not very happy about something, and if you are feeling dull and low and you are not feeling well, your face automatically tells other person that you have something wrong, or you have something wrong within yourself. So this is how your non-verbal attitude, this is what we call non-verbal attitude, it also talks to other people, it also conveys our message. So that also becomes another mode of communication that we are going to discuss in our upcoming slides. Now let's talk about the communication graph. First of all, let's discuss verbal. Verbal is something that the message that we deliver. Now that can be the combination of the words that we are using, or that can also be the combination of the choice of the words that we are using to convey our message to the next person. So verbal is something that has something to do with your spoken. The second thing is our vocal. That is the voice that we convey. If we are loud, or if we are rude, let's say, in other words, or if we are bold, it will automatically tell the other person that we are kind of authoritative person. So the way you are talking, if my voice is low and I am, you know, kind of humble, and I am lean, and I am so much towards earth, and I am, you know, not so much authoritative. In other words, the people would automatically think that this person is not very confident, and maybe this person is hesitant in conveying his or her thoughts. So this is how people believe, and this is how people keep on changing their views from situation to situation. It depends on your vocals, the voice quality that you are using, that we are going to discuss in our next lectures also. Then the third thing is visual. That is our body language. Now our body language is something that we cannot control, right? But as we will move with the passage of time, you will get to know that in your presentation skills, how your body language, or how your physical position, or how your facial expressions, your hand movements, your eye contact, everything that matters. So this is how we are going to discuss each one of them in detail, and visual is another thing that counts into your communication. Now we have discussed three things thoroughly. The first one is verbal, the second one is vocal, and the third one is visual, that add to your communication. I hope you are enjoying the sequence of our presentation. The communication skills, essay writing and presentation skills itself is a very interesting topic that we are going to talk about. And communication skills is something that we do every day, but to know about it is something really different. This is what we are doing right now, and I hope you are enjoying it. Now what exactly we are going to study today? Today's topic highlights are that what is communication. Then we are going to talk about that how do we communicate, that we have already done before. Then what is a skill. Then we are going to talk about the language, different language skills in detail. Then different types of communication that we have. Then the communication cycle. We have the barriers in language communication that we are also going to discuss, and we are also going to, you know, find out the solutions by discussing the overcoming barriers heading in our today's lecture. Now first of all, let's discuss what is communication. The dictionary defines communication as a process by which information is exchanged between individuals. Now if you reread that, the dictionary defines the communication, now forget about that, as a process. Process is something which is sequential, or which has got any sequence in it. It has got the proper beginning, it has got the middle, and it has got the end. Now the beginning of the message, or beginning of the communication is right now. Let's take right now's example, a current situation. As I am talking and you are listening to me. Now you are listening to me, and your response is not coming to me because you can only listen to me right now. This is the one-way communication, or the one-way process, right? If, in other words, if you are watching television, let's say, and you are listening to the news. Now the newscaster is giving you the news of whatsoever has been going on in the situation, or any current news that she is discussing or providing you. Now you can listen to it, and your response would be that you would be thinking, or you know, your mind would be thinking about that very thing in different ways, right? That is your response. Now let's take an example of two people. The first person A is talking to the second person B. Now he is the sender, and this is the receiver of the information. Now this sender sends the information to the receiver that I am going to the school. Now this receiver will receive the information and encode that message in his or her mind, and will reply back to the sender saying that okay. Now maybe the person B has got any question, and he asks person A, what time you will come back? Now person A, he will quickly replies at 1 p.m. So this sending information and then receiving the information, then sending information and then receiving the information has something to do with the communication cycle. So it becomes a process. Communication is a process that goes on and on and on and on. Now as I am talking and you are listening, that doesn't mean that the communication is not going on. That's although a one-way cycle or one-side communication. But as you are listening to me, maybe you are taking down notes, or maybe you are listening to me very carefully, or maybe you are trying to grasp the information, every single word that I am saying. So you are trying to in other words, you are trying to encode them in your brain, and then maybe you are going to produce that very information in the exam. Or maybe you are going to rewrite that information in your own words. So this will become a cycle in which I am sending the information and you are jotting down the information. In other words, that you are trying to make sure that you have absorbed every single word that I am saying. So this is how it becomes a process. So communication is a process by which information is exchanged. Now as I've said that the sender sends information to the receiver, so the information is being exchanged between the two individuals differently. Between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs or behavior. Now communication is not something that is conveyed through a language. That can also be conveyed through your facial expressions, that can also be conveyed through your hand movements, your eye contact. Now if I am talking and if I am looking here and there and I am not looking into the eye of my audience, they would automatically think that if I am not interested to listen to them. As you are listening to me right now, maybe somebody comes in your room, or maybe somebody disturbs you, and you are listening to me, but you are not paying attention. So this is how your behavior counts towards what you are saying. Now your symbols, your signs and your behaviors count in your one-to-one communication, where two individuals are there and they are talking to each other. So communication is something that is a process of exchanging the information between different individuals, as through the language as well as through the signs, symbols and the behaviors. Now communication is the activity of conveying information, that is to cut down the information and tell you in the simple words. Communication has been derived from the Latin words communis. Say the word communis. Communis means to share. That is to share the information that you have. Now communication has been derived from the Latin word, as you can see, and it means to share. So it itself, the word carries the meaning of sharing something with other people, so that you don't have any confusion or you don't lack any kind of distance between the two individuals. Communication requires a sender. As I said, this is person A message, any information that you are going to share with the next person, and an intended recipient, that you are currently listening to me, so you are my intended recipient right now. So I hope you are enjoying the communication cycle, the communication process and the communication definition. Now let's talk about what is a skill. Do you understand the word skill? Skill is an ability. As you can see the definition of a skill, skill is defined as a learned power. Now skill is not something that is within you or that is there within you once you are talking about the language communication. Skill is defined as a learned power. You learn it and you try to grasp every information that is there with the passage of time, of doing something competently. Now you have an inborn or innate ability of doing something and you want to polish that. Maybe I was in my childhood I was good at drawing different pictures and drawing different things. I got admission in let's say a fine arts class and I tried to polish my drawing skills. Now I had something within me in my childhood that was my innate or inborn quality, that was maybe herited or maybe I was that was God gifted. That wasn't a skill, But as I took admission in the fine arts class and my teacher told me the different ways of drawing and different mediums of painting, let's say water painting, pastel paints, oil paints and other paints like that. So this is how I learned different things, and it became my learned ability, and it became my skill. And I, with the passage of time, as I kept on drawing different pictures in different mediums, maybe in oil, maybe in water, maybe in pastel, I became a very good painter. So I was then competent enough of drawing different things. Now this is how you define a skill. That is not inborn or innate. That is something that you learn with the passage of time. It is a developed aptitude or ability. Now that is something that is developed with the passage of time, or that is instructed to you with the passage of time. Now essay writing skills and presentation skills are not something that you know already. Maybe you know some writing skills, right? You know how to write different paragraphs, and you also know how to write longer text, or maybe you know how to write an article, but maybe you are not good at essay writing. So as we will move on in the semester, I will tell you the different ways of essay writing. We will keep on practicing different essays, and one day you will become a very good essay writer. And so is the case with our presentation skills. As we will move on, all of us can talk, all of us can speak, but the fear of the stage is always there. So we are going to make sure that you are not going to hesitate once you are going to deliver any presentation in front of any audience that you don't know of. Communication is of two types. The first one is your verbal communication, that is in the forms of the words, in the forms of the voice modulation. As we had been talking about, the words is your verbal unit. That has something to do with the choice of the words that you are using to convey your information or to convey your message. On the other hand, you have the voice modulation. That has something to do with your voice quality, your pitch, your tone. Everything is added in your voice modulation. Now if you are loud enough, people would think that you are aggressive, and if you are dull and if you are low, people would think that you are so submissive and you don't have any command over or you are unable to provide the information that is there. So once you are in a process of presenting, once we will learn how to present, make sure that you are confident, you look loud, not in the aggressive terms, but you look loud as you know every information that you are going to share with the audience. Then we will talk about the non-verbal communication. That is the second type of your communication. That has something to do with your posture, the way you stand during the presentation, and then your movement. You don't have to stand at one place like this. You have to keep on moving. Now moving doesn't have to do with moving from the first corner to the other. That is going to not help you keep or not deliver a good presentation. You have to move in a way that you are visible to each and every audience that is there, each and every person in the room, so that you are going to make yourself visible to them, as well as make sure that you can see or you can have a visit of each one of them eye to eye. Then your gestures. Now if you put your hands in your pockets, or if you close your arms like this, that is not going to make any difference. You are supposed to or you are going to make sure that your gestures are open enough that is going to welcome their they are going to welcome their response towards your presentation or your communication. And then your facial expressions. You should not look dull and boring. You should be energetic and you should be confident once you are delivering your presentation or once you are communicating to anyone. So this is how these are the two different types of communication which are very important if we talk about our presentation skills and if we talk about our essay writing skills as well. Now communication system normally goes through a cycle involving the first one, if you see, that is the sender. Right now, in the current situation, I'm the sender, the person who sends the message, that is the source. So the source of information is I myself. Now you are the receiver. The second point, if you see, that is the receiver, the person who receives the message. Now as you are receiving the information, as you are trying to digest that information within you, and you are trying to understand each and every word that I am saying, you automatically will become the receiver of the information. The third one is the message. Now I am sending you the message, that is the information, the subject matter of the communication. Currently we are talking about that what is communication and what are the language skills. It may contain facts, ideas, feelings and thoughts. Now this is in the current situation, that is a very kind of academic situation where we are talking about the bookish things. In the normal day or in the daily conversation, you talk to your mother, you talk to your father, you talk to your sisters, you talk to your brothers, friends, family or anyone. You go to the shop, you talk to the shopkeepers. Now this is the cycle that is based on your requirements, that is based on your facts, emotions, feelings. You tell your mother that I am hungry, you tell your sister that I am angry, and so on and so forth. So this is how facts are there, ideas are there, and everything is there. Now if you see the fourth thing, that is the channel. Now the channel that we use for communication, that can be verbal in the form of the words that we are using as we are communicating, and we are taking help of our words, the words in the language, and then the non-verbal communication, the facial expressions. Maybe you meet your friend and he doesn't talk to you, and he has made a face, a very bad face, so you would automatically understand that maybe he is not in a good mood to talk to you, or maybe he is angry. And the feedback, receiver's response or reaction or reply. Now as you are listening to me, you have your response, you have your reply, you have your response maybe in the form of maybe you are nodding your head, or maybe you are jotting down the information on your writing pad. This is your response and this is your reaction towards our cycle, towards my communication. So that will complete our cycle, because you are providing the feedback in the form of a written material, which is directly towards the sender. Now as this is the one-way communication, if you were sitting in front of me physically, you would be able to maybe you had any question and you could ask me at this very time. But as you are not as we are not talking face to face, and we are good camera friends, so we are going to make sure that this communication doesn't end up like this. We will make sure that every query or every question that you have is I am here to give you all answers, and I am here to satisfy all your queries right now. Okay, now see the communication cycle. The sender, he encodes, he or she, whosoever they are, they encode the message in their brain, and that is sent through a proper channel. Now channel is something that can be verbal or that can be non-verbal. This is up to you. And then the message is being decoded in the receiver's brain, and the receiver then he replies back to the sender, and then the communication cycle completes. So this is how the communication cycle or the communication model looks like. Now if you see step number 1, as we have discussed already, number 1 is your sender, the one who is the source of the information, or the one who is sending the information. Sender sends message, and the message can be in the form of words, the message can be verbal, message can be non-verbal. Now the message is sent through a channel that can be verbal, or that can be visual, or that can be vocal. Then receiver receives the information, and he tries to decode that information in his brain, and then receiver sends feedback to the sender in the form of maybe word, maybe through non-verbal behavior, or maybe through the verbal behavior. Now if you see in the whole communication cycle that we have, which starts with sender, message, channel, receiver, and then our feedback. If you see in the middle, we have written that there is a noise and there are barriers. Now if we are standing in the middle of the market and we are trying to talk to each other, maybe one of your friends has crossed the road towards the other end, and you are standing on the other side of the road, and you are trying to communicate to one another. Maybe you have forgotten your mobile phone with him, and you are trying to get it back, and you are shouting from one corner to the other. Maybe you are sitting in a room, and maybe there is a kind of a distortion, people coming in and people going outside, and there are other so many barriers that are there once you talk about the communication cycle. So communication doesn't come in blank. That is not that the receiver is going to get the each and every word in a very quiet situation where he wants to get it. There can be different barriers once we talk about the communication cycle, and as we move on we will talk about them in detail. Now if you see this structure, we are going to discuss it thoroughly. The first point says that message is being sent by the sender in the form of the gesture, maybe in the form of a drawing, maybe a facial expression, spoken or written. Anything that is there, the message is being sent. Second thing is the message enters in the sensory world of the receiver. Now the receiver receives that message through or his or her all senses. All senses are your sense of sight, your sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of hearing, and sense of touch. So all these 5 senses are involved in your communication. Then your third thing is stimuli, which picks up the message. Now stimuli, it varies from person to person. It depends on person's abilities, it depends on person's cultural background, it depends on the current situation of the person. Maybe you are drowsy, you just woke up, maybe you are dizzy, maybe you are daydreaming, someone is talking about something and you are daydreaming and you are thinking about something else, or you are not alert. So these kind of situations, once you pick up the information, they matter to your response towards the sender. The outside noises, maybe there are noises coming from outside and they are distracting you and they are disturbing your communication. Then your facial expressions, maybe you are talking to someone and you don't have a good eye contact with them, they would think that you are not interested in the communication. Then double and dual meanings that we are going to talk about in our next coming slides. That has something to do with the connotations and denotations that we will discuss thoroughly. Then the filtering process, that is the brain. Now as the information has come, or the stimuli has received the information, the filtering process in the brain will begin. That will be through the contents and experiences and the knowledge and the emotions and the cultural background that you have. It depends on your cultural background, your knowledge background, your emotions, your feelings, your experiences, and everything that you know of. You filter that message according to your background information that you have, whatsoever scenario you are coming from. Then you respond to the message through words, gestures, or physical actions. Maybe if your answer is no, you simply nod your head like this, and if your answer is yes, you say. So this is some kind of physical actions. Your gestures is if you are happy towards something, you smile, or if you are not happy towards something, you make faces. And then you can also take help of words like saying yes, no, or maybe if you have longer texts or longer answers to give, you can use them. And then the cycle is repeated. The sender sends message to the receiver. That is through the message is being sent through a proper channel, and the receiver, he decodes the message in his brain, and then he sends back the message, that is the feedback, to the sender, and the cycle, it goes on and on and on. This is how communication cycle works. Now if you see another picture, the first person had an idea and he is encoding that idea in his brain. There are some internal noises. He is using his background information, that which information he is supposed to send to the sender, and which information that he is going receiver, and then which information that he is going to keep it to himself. Then message is transmitted through external noises, whatsoever is in the environment is, and then the message is received by the receiver, and he is decoding that message to internal and semantic noises. And now sentence structure, it also varies, and people take different meanings of different words and different sentences, and then the message is being decoded in your brain, as you can see in the picture as well. Now, important things that are supposed to be kept in mind once you are communicating to different people, that be calm and collected all the time. So once you are talking or once you are sending your information to someone, you are going to make sure that you are going to stay calm and collected all the time. Now, collected means that you are not going to shatter. You are not going to get confused. You are not going to forget the words that you want to use in your communication, and you are going to, stay relaxed while you are talking to someone. Be loud enough to be easily heard. Now, we will also discuss these points in your presentation skills, during your presentation skills, that how you are supposed to be calm and collected all the times, and how you are supposed to be loud enough to be heard to the lastest person in the room. How this happens, maybe the fear of the presentation is always there, the fear of the unknown stage or the unknown people is always there, but how we are going to make sure that you are going to be loud and to be easily heard, this is what we are going to practice in this semester. Use words with accurate diction and correct pronunciation. Now, before you move on to some communication, make sure that you keep on polishing your language skills. Now, I will share a link with you, that is forvo.com, Forvo, forvo.com. We are going to make sure that you are going to learn those words of which you don't know the correct pronunciation of, that we are going to discuss and that we are going to practice in our presentation skills thoroughly. Speak slowly and make use of pauses to stress important words. Now, that has something to do with your paraverbal activity. Now, this paraverbal has something to do with your stress and intonation, your diction, your tone, your pitch of voice, your loudness, the stress on the important words, and you are calm and collected on throughout, and those words which need stress, you speak them differently. As I'm talking right now, and I have a few words on which I want to put stress on, so this is how I want, which words I want you to understand, I stress them, and which words which are not very necessary, as we are talking in a one-to-one daily conversation, I keep on talking. Now, from now we are going to talk about some barriers in communication, and before that we will talk about the components of communication. The first one is verbal messages, that is the words that we use, as we have already discussed. The second one is your paraverbal messages, that is the way how you say different words. Now, we are also going to discuss, and we are also going to see that in the next slides also. The third one is your non-verbal message, that has something to do with your body language. Now, effective verbal messages are brief, concise, and they are organized. Now, brief, concise means that they are short, they are terse, and they are to the point, and they are organized. Now, things which are related and which are relevant, you say them in the beginning, and things which are not related and which are not necessary, you say them at the end. They are free of jargon. Now, jargon is something or we define a jargon as a word which is understandable within the group of people. Now, let's take an example of the word lol, L-O-L, lol, laugh out louder. Now, this word in our daily communication is not understandable by everyone. A specific group of youngsters or maybe the young people, they understand this word. Once my student, the CR of my class, he sent me a message. He said I just floated a joke, and he said LOL in the response. I said, what is this LOL? And he told me that this LOL stands for laugh out louder. Now, the people from the specific generation, the young generation, they understand the word LOL, but people like us who are not in their generation and of not their age group, we don't easily understand that word. Now, the word that is understandable within the group of people or within the specific status or for the specific genders, that is known as a jargon. Now, verbal messages are effective when they are not going to create any resistance in the listener. Now, your message should be clear, your message should be concise, short, terse, so that the receiver is going to receive every information and he is not going to, be resistant, or he is not going to hesitate, or he is not going to, not getting into the information that you are using. Now, categories in verbal communication, non-verbal communication are your facial expressions. First of all, as you see in the pictures, the first person is smiling, the second person is kind of a blank, or maybe he is sad, and third person, he is looking very angry. Now, your facial expressions to different people, they count differently. If you are not feeling well, your face will become like in the second picture, and if you are happy, your face would be like in the first picture, and if you are very angry and your friend is not coming, or maybe he is late to pick you up and anything like that, you would be very angry, your face will be like the third one. Now, your facial expressions, they count to your non-verbal messages, or they convey non-verbal messages to different people. A face can lit up in the once you are enthusiastic about something, once you are energetic about something, when you get approval of something, maybe you have applied for any scholarship and you get that scholarship, and your face lights up, that your eyes are glittering, and your face is smiling. Sometimes your face, it expresses confusion or boredom. Sometimes once you are very tired and you are confused, your facial expressions, they automatically convey what you are thinking of. Your frown with displeasure, sometimes the news doesn't appeal to you, or the news wasn't very pleasing to you, or it did not please you, so your face, it frowned with displeasure. Your eyes telegraphing the joy. Your eyes are lighting up, and they are telling you the joy. Sometimes you are sad, or sometimes you are angry, and sometimes you are confused, so your face is, your facial expressions help other people tell about each and everything that you are thinking of. Now, categories in non-verbal communication. The first category that we have talked about was your facial expressions. The second one is your postures and your gestures. Now, if you see in the picture, the first one is standing like this, closed arms, and he's showing the cold rejection towards someone. Now, the second one has got the open arms, and he is welcoming, and he is showing the open warmness. The element of warmness is coming from within him. Now, if you see the second one, that is, he is showing the warm openness, and the first one, he is showing the cold rejection. Now, feeling of anticipation that you are being welcomed, or you are being accepted, or something like that. And this next person is showing the feeling of inflexibility, the uncomfortable situation, and you are not very flexible person to be adjusted in every situation. So your physical posture and your physical gestures, they count a lot towards your non-verbal messages and your non-verbal communication. Now, let's talk about the different kind of accounts of non-verbal messages. That 55% of our perceived messages have our non-verbal communication. So out of 100, that is 45% is our verbal communication, and as we are talking, our 55% percentage is involved in our communication, that is of our non-verbal communication. They are conveyed through our facial expressions as well as our postures and gestures. So this is what we are supposed to keep in mind while we are going to study our presentation skills. Now, let's see the paraverbal messages. Let's try to define it first. They are the messages that we transmit through our tone, pitch, and pacing of our voices. Loud, bold, the stress on different words, and if you are dull, if you are bored, your voice and your pitch will automatically convey your message. Now let's see, it is not about what do you say, it's about how you say different things, and how do you try to make other people understand. Now if you see the example, let me make sure that you are going to get it differently in different ways. Now check out the way I'm saying it, as I am putting my pitch of voice, my stress and my pace of voice in different ways. Now I'm going to stress on the words which are in the caps, which are bold, highlighted, and then you are going to listen to it differently. I'm talking about the first one. I didn't say you were stupid. Now my stress was on the word say. So the stress, when it comes to the say, it automatically changes the mode of the communication. Then in the second sentence, I didn't say you were stupid. So my stress on the word you made other people understand that that wasn't about them. I didn't say you were stupid. So stupid, the word stupid can be replaced in the mind of the receiver in a different way. Now let me say these three different sentences in a one go. I didn't say you were stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. So this is how, or way that we are saying different things, or how we are going to put our stress on different words, vary from situation to situation, and they become the paraverbal messages. This is all about how you say things. So the collection of the words counts. Your body gestures, your hand movements, your facial expressions, they also count. But yes, your non-verbal behavior, they also count towards your communication cycle. Your verbal messages can be depicted, or can be conveyed through paraphrasing, reflecting feelings, summarizing and questioning. Now if we talk about the first one, that is paraphrasing, a brief concise statement reflecting the content of the speaker's message. Now speaker is, or the sender is sending the message to the receiver. Now receiver, he is paraphrasing back each and everything to the speaker. In other words, he is trying to tell him whatever he has said in a concised version, maybe a concise statement, a short statement, or a summary of whatsoever the speaker has said, to make sure that whatsoever he has heard, the second person has heard, was right. The second thing is reflecting feeling, a statement in a way that conveys understanding of the feeling that the listener has heard. Now the sender was sending the message to the receiver, and receiver, he received the information. Now he is reflecting feeling. Maybe he is nodding his head, maybe he is smiling, maybe he is there is a sense of approval in the eyes of that very receiver. So that is the reflection of the feeling that you are sending to the receiver, to make sure that let him make sure that whatsoever he has said has been understood by number B. Summarizing, a statement of the main ideas and feelings to show understanding. So you summarize the content of the speaker, in other words, to make sure that whatsoever you have understood was right or correct. Questioning, asking open questions to gain information, encourage the speaker to tell her story and gain clarification. Now speaker was telling you about something, and you are the receiver, he is continuously, or he keeps on asking questions to make things clear for him, or to make sure that whatever he has heard in the questioning form, that whatsoever he has heard was right. Now let's move on to the next slide, and let's talk about what is a barrier. Now let's try to explain the word barrier. What is a barrier? A barrier can be explained as a hindrance, a stoppage, a hamperness, or a cordon, a obstacle, hurdle, or a blockage. Now barrier is something which does not, or which do not let one person approach the other, or maybe if there is a hurdle, let's say there is a wall in between. Let's see the next picture, by the way. How would you define a communication barrier? If you see in the picture, the sender is trying to send the message to the receiver, and the receiver's face, it looks totally blank. Why? Because the receiver, maybe because of the internal noises, or maybe because of the external noises, he or she is unable to understand the message. Now what is the communication barrier? The sender sends some message, and the receiver, he receives the information as it is, but the receiver's interpretation is different than the sender's. Now message is being misinterpreted because of the barriers. Now what are these barriers? This is what we are supposed to talk about in today's lecture. Now there are some barriers to communication. The first one is language barrier, the second one is physiological barrier, third one is psychological barrier, fourth one is cultural barrier, fifth one are the bypassed instruction, the sixth one is abstracting. Now let's talk about the language barriers. Language barriers mostly have something to do with your background. Your background that consists of your personal experiences, your knowledge background, your education and your cultural background. Now that one Pashto speaking speaker is talking to a Punjabi speaker, maybe there is a difference between their choice of words, maybe the selection of the words that they are using. Maybe a Pashto speaker doesn't know a substitute for the words that the Punjabi speaker knows in his language. So both of language structures, they vary from person to person. So they can be one of the background barrier that is coming from or with you, or it also becomes a barrier in your communication, that you are unable to talk to each other because of your language barriers. The second one is the words. The words, as in the previous slides I was also telling you that we are going to talk about the connotations and denotations. Now words, they carry their denotative meaning as well as they carry their connotative meaning. Denotative or the denotations is something that is the dictionary meaning of the word. Connotations is something that is the underneath meaning of the words. Now these words, they can have the positive as well as the negative connotations in different languages or in different cultures. Denotative meaning is something that is the dictionary meaning of the word. Let's take the example of color red, as I'm wearing right now. Red symbolizes, in our culture, red symbolizes danger. It also symbolizes, let's say, love. It symbolizes blood, and so on and so forth. So it varies from situation to situation. In the signal lights, red color, it depicts danger, so everyone has to stop once there is a red light. Now denotative meaning of the word red is that it's a color that can be used as a color. But the connotative meaning of the word is that it stands for danger, it stands for love, or it stands for stop. So this is how the connotative meaning is different from the denotative meaning. Let's take another example. Another example says that, let's say the word needle. Needle is a word, the denotative meaning of the word is that it is used for stitching clothes. Stitching different clothes. But the connotative meaning, if we use the word as why are you needling me? Needling me. In other words, it means that why are you pinching me or why are you irritating me? So the connotative meaning of the word it automatically changes. So this is how words, they have different meanings, and words, they possess different meanings in different languages. Now there was a Chinese, in China the word red is taken as happiness, and in America the word red is taken as danger. Now a Chinese person was talking to an American, and he was trying to tell him that my business nowadays is all in red. Now he wanted to tell him that my business is flourishing and we are having very good times in the business. However, on the other hand, the American, he understood that his business maybe is going in loss, or maybe it's in danger. So this is how the connotative meaning and the denotative meanings, they are different from cultures to cultures, and they have their positive connotations as well as their negative connotations. Now let's talk about the language barriers, the bypassed instructions. Sometimes the use of jargons, obsolete words, slangs and misleading terminologies lead to language barrier between people or between the group of people. Examples are burn the paper and get rid of the plant. Now these kind of idioms are used in different situations. Let's take an example of the first one, burn the paper. Now there was a secretary who was hired in the office recently. Her boss, he called her in and he said that go and burn this paper. This is a very important piece of paper. Go and burn it. Now she understood the way the boss said it. She went out and she thought for a minute that if it is a very important paper, then why my boss is telling me to burn it? Anyways, she went away, she went to the kitchen of the office and she told the cook to burn it. The cook burned it, like they, burned that very paper on the stove. She came back to boss's office and he said, where is the paper? She said, I have burned it. He said, what? You are fired. Now, whose fault was that the girl or the secretary was supposed to leave or supposed to, get away from the job, or she was fired from the job? That was the fault of the boss, because he used the misleading terminology to make sure to convey her or convey his message. He must have said that go and get the photocopy of the paper, or he must have said that go and get the photostat of the paper. Instead of saying that, he said that go and burn the paper. Now burn the CD, burn the paper are those kind of misleading terminologies being used in the current society, which mislead or which convey the bypassed instructions to the next person. Now let's take another example, get rid of the plant. Now there was the manager of the company, and he went to visit the factory where there were plants, different plants of different breeds were kept in one room. Now there were 10 plants, and the manager, he visited all of them individually, and they were really very expensive plants. And now as he was visiting the plants one by one, he found a problem in the second plant. Now he told the labor to come and get rid of this second plant. Now the labor, he came and he picked up the plant and he threw it outside in the dustbin. Now when the manager, he called the labor that has he gotten rid of the plant? The manager, he replied that, the labor, he replied that yes sir, I have replaced the plant with a new one. The manager, he said that I told you to get rid of the problem in the plant, not with the plant. So the fault was of the managers, because he did not provide the complete information to the labor. Now labor had to, labor was fired from the job, and he had to, suffer because of the manager, because he did not convey his message completely. Now there is an Urdu verb, jiski lathi uski bhains. Now this Urdu verb is the correct explanation of whatsoever I am telling you right now, that the people sitting on the higher positions, they have got this courage of firing or hiring the people sitting in the lower grades, or maybe working in on the assistant level, or maybe working in the lower skills. So this is how the bypass instructions sometimes have to create a language barrier in our communication. Now let's talk about the language barriers. Abstracting, they focus on the few things and omit others. For example, short summary, abstracting is something that is a short summary of something that can be positive or negative. Now journalism, let's take an example of journalism. There is one information that is factual, where no abstracting is required, or where you don't have to summarize each and everything. However, there is one information that is non-factual information, which is not based on facts. Sometimes this is also known as JLO journalism, where journalists, they provide the chakpati news in their writing, where people can be interested to listen to their news or read their news carefully. So they can mislead the people from factual to non-factual. So these kind of language barriers are also there. You listen to that was something else which has happened, and with the mirch masala it became something else. So this kind of non-factual information should be avoided once you talk about the language, overcoming language barriers. Physiological barriers are those barriers which are in your physical surroundings or in your physical environment. That is the context, that is the situation, that is the current situation which you are sitting in. Sometimes you receive some kind of barriers in your current situation because of some physical environment barriers, maybe as we are talking in, maybe if there is no light and it's really very hot and humid weather, so we won't be very comfortable while talking to each other because we must be, you know, very much exhausted with the weather that we have had. Then the dull voice, maybe as I'm talking and I become very dull, I talk in a very low voice, so you won't be able to do. So the dull voice has to be overcome, and it also becomes the physiological barrier. Then too many others talking in the room at the same time. Maybe there is a class going on and the teacher is trying to, you know, tell or convey the information or tell about any topic, and the students, they are talking and they come up with the questions, and all of them they start talking at one time. So it creates a problem for the teacher to understand which one student to listen to and which one query to solve first and which one to not, and you know, it creates physiological barrier in our communication. Then our outside noises, maybe there is a noise coming from outside the door, and you are unable to, you know, pay attention to the person whom you are listening to. Your interpretations, maybe you interruptions, maybe you are being interrupted by someone or you are being disturbed by someone while you are talking, as I am talking, or maybe if somebody disturbs me, so I have to, you know, start my thoughts from the first point again, because the thoughts, they keep on coming in our mind, and sometimes you forget what you were about to say next once you are being interrupted by someone. It happens to everyone. There is no big deal in that. Then visual distraction, maybe you are two of the friends, they are talking and you see some visual distraction, like something goes on, a fight between guys, or maybe there are smart girls coming in the room, and you know, you get distracted whatever you are saying. Then there are interesting people around. Those people who are of your interest, you are continuously looking at them and you are unable to pay any attention to whatsoever your friend is talking to you. Then the proper light issue, sometimes you don't have proper light. Maybe mostly people, they don't like dark rooms. So if there is no proper light, you would be unable to listen to the next person. Then music, if there is music in the background, very loud music in the background, you won't be able to, you know, listen to each other carefully. Then talking loud, maybe if you are talking too loud enough to be understood by the next person, he would be, you know, sometimes the next person maybe is a submissive kind of a person, though, so they are, you know, afraid of your high voice, your loud voice, and they are unable to, you know, pay attention to whatever you are saying. Then different sounds in the environment, they also create physiological barriers once we are trying to, you know, talk to each other. Then the second thing is the physical conditions. In your physiological barriers, your physical conditions. Now that has something to do with your physical conditions. Maybe you are drowsy and you are dizzy. Maybe you just woke up, or maybe you woke up early in the morning, it's late night, and your friend called you and you are, you know, very dizzy and drowsy and you are unable to talk. So that won't convey the message of your friend to you because you were at that time very dizzy and drowsy. Air conditioning, a lot of air conditioning or the cold rooms make you sometimes shiver, and with the coldness you are unable to talk or deliver your message, and sometimes you are unable to listen carefully. Hot, stuffy in the cold room, so the environment, the physical environment, it costs you your body temperature. If it's the body temperature is very hot and the room is very stuffy, you won't be able to pay attention to the sender of the message, and so this is how it becomes another physiological barrier. Then sometimes daydreaming, something on mind, maybe you are already preoccupied with something in your mind and you are thinking about something else, and somebody comes in and he tells you something to do, but you were so much occupied with the work that you, or with the thought that you had in your mind, that you could not, you know, listen to that person carefully. Then sometimes when you are starving, or once you are hungry, or sometimes when you have had the overeating, you cannot concentrate or on the message that the next person is saying. Sometimes you have health problems, flu, cough, temperature, these kind of things, they also add to your physiological barriers. Sometimes you are exhausted or starving in these kind of situations which have something to do with your physical condition. They count to your barrier in communication. Now, psychological barriers. Psychology is something that is about your mind, that is about your brain. So if your mind is not working well, or if your mind is not ready to listen to the next person, you won't be able to understand their message, and that will also become another communication barrier in your language. Now, mind is the psychology of mind, it works differently. Now, social status. Now, the lower class, they keep or they like talking to the people of their own class. Middle class, they are comfortable in their own class, and the high upper class, they only talk to the high upper class. So this is how the social status is like. Higher upper class will be very commanding towards the lower class or the lower middle class. However, the lower middle class will be very submissive and very humble towards the elite or the upper class. So this is how your social status is once you are communicating your ideas to, or once you are communicating to different people in the society. Then less educated people, or we usually think of those people who cannot talk English or who cannot speak English, that these are dumb and goof and they are less educated, and we don't think anything of them because that's kind of a set pattern, or let's say that's kind of a psychology, that if that person cannot talk English, that person is not educated, or that person is not smart enough to communicate to the others. So English has become a requirement in today's world. If you can't speak English, you are not educated, in other words. So we are going to make sure that we are going to work on our pronunciation, we are going to work on our verbal communication, we are going to talk about, we are going to polish our writing skills, and we are also going to polish our presenting skills. Then the gender, mostly ladies, they are not very comfortable in talking to men, and some men, they are also not very comfortable in talking to ladies. So gender also matters once we talk about the psychological barrier in language. Your emotions, your feelings, your prejudices, once if you don't like anyone, you don't have a good opinion about someone, so your thought automatically differs, and your psychology doesn't allow you to listen to that person or to talk to that person. So that also becomes another communication barrier in today's world. Then we have cultural barriers, people coming from different cultures, speakers' accents. A Britisher won't be able to understand the English of an American, and American won't be able to listen to the English of Britisher. So this is how both of them, they are different, and they cannot understand each other easily. The vocabulary, the words maybe that I am using won't be, I am trying my level best to make sure that I am going to use the easiest language as I can, so that you are going to understand whatever I am talking about. But sometimes the vocabulary is so high to make your social impression that you know a very good English, and people who don't know that meanings, they become diffident, and they become submissive, and they cannot contribute or participate in the communication. So that also becomes the cultural barrier sometimes. So it has something to do with your psychology as well as your culture. Sometimes the words in one culture are different from the other culture, so the vocabulary differs from culture to culture. Then there are cultural assumptions. Most of the cultures, like let's talk about the Pakistan and India culture, we don't like, that has become this hatred, or let's say this unfriendly behavior is moving in our veins since 1947, or maybe before that, that we don't like copying the vocabulary of Indians, because we have that cultural assumption that they are not our friends maybe. So this kind of a cultural assumption, do not let people talk to each other, and there is another communication barrier between two of these countries. Then there are cultural biases. As we say in today's world, sometimes we say that let's talk about America, and let's talk about England, or let's talk about Pakistan, Saudi. We have good terms with some people and we don't have good terms with some countries. So in other words, your cultural biases also counts to your communication. Then you have cultural connotations, as we have already taken the example of the word red. Different cultures, they have different meanings of different words in their cultures, so they vary from culture to culture, and this is how they also become the barrier in your communication. Now non-verbal barriers are, there are some non-verbal barriers. Flashing and rolling eyes. Sometimes your eyes are flashing and sometimes your eyes are rolling. You are rolling your eyes in terms that you are least interested in the topic, or maybe you did not understand anything. You have flashing eyes, it means that you are maybe the next person takes it as you are confused, or you are blank, or maybe you are happy. So these kind of expressions, or these kind of non-verbal behavior lead to a barrier in communication, that next person do not understand your response. Quick or slow movements. Someone is talking to you and you quickly stand up and get out of the room. Someone is talking to you and you slowly look at them and make a face and something like that. So these kind of movements, your facial expressions, your body movements, they count to your communication a lot. Arms crossed, legs crossed, sometimes they also add to your communication non-verbal barrier, and they also become a hindrance in your communication. Gestures made with irritation. Sometimes our facial expressions, or our body gestures, or our eye contact, or hair, they also tell a lot about our communication, and people get uneasy with our positions or gestures. Then poor personal care. Maybe if you are carrying yourself poorly, maybe you are not dressed up properly, that is another non-verbal behavior that is going to create any barrier. Maybe you are going up for the university presentation and you are not dressed up properly, so your teacher would think that you did not come prepared for the presentation, and when you deliver the presentation, that was the best of all. So this is how there is a misleading barrier of your poor personal care that mislead the attention, or that mislead the teacher that you were not interested in the presentation. Doodling, your head is doodling and you're staring at people or avoiding the eye contact. As I'm talking right now, or maybe you are physically present and you are staring at me, your stare would make me think that maybe you are not getting anything that I'm talking about, and you are not understanding anything that we have discussed so far. Then excessive twitching of the materials. Maybe your friend is talking to you and you are continuously playing with your mobile phone, and that's excessive twitching with the materials, that you are touching different things. Maybe you start looking into your bag, maybe you start looking into your wallet or anything like that. These excessive things lead to different kind of non-verbal barriers in our communication. Now today we have talked about that what is communication, how do we communicate, what is a skill. We have also talked about the different language skills in our language: speaking, reading, writing, and listening. Then we have talked about the types of communication, that is verbal, non-verbal, and paraverbal. Then we have also discussed the communication cycle that starts with the sender. Sender sends the message. Message is being sent through a proper channel to the receiver, and receivers, he replies back or he sends his feedback. Then we have talked about the barriers in language communication, that were the language barriers that we have talked about. Then we have also talked about the physiological barriers, psychological barriers, and cultural barriers. Then we have also discussed that how we can overcome our barriers in spoken as well as written communication. That is going to help you communicate in a very interesting way during your essay writing skills as well as your presentation skills. Now you can see the references in this slide. So that was all about today. I hope you have enjoyed learning about communication skills. You have learned about verbal, non-verbal communication and the paraverbal communication in our communication. You have also learned about the communication cycle, the one-side communication and the two-side communication, and so on and so forth. So I hope that was interesting and new information for you that I have shared so far. In the next lecture, we are going to talk about the different writing styles in our language, as we are going to begin our essay writing skills. So I'm going to make sure that we start up with the writing skill, and you get to know that how to properly write sentences. As we move on in our next lectures, we will get to know that how to write longer paragraphs and then essays, longer text, and then you become a good presenter altogether. So that was all about it. Thank you so much and have a very nice day. Thank you.